I was addicted to marijuana, to nicotine. I popped Xannies a lot. I've messed around with LSD as well. It took me a long time to be able to sit up and say, hey, like, I have an issue. My story began in the beginning of my freshman year when I had a lot of home life issues, but it all started out with me just genuinely wanting to have a good time. And so my friend group was really into it, into smoking weed and stuff like that, as I imagine a lot of other friend groups are. And so that's kind of when it started. So I had been trying to get sober, and what ended up happening was it was Friday night after a football game, and I was stressed out. I didn't know what the heck was going on because I was going through withdrawal. So when you quit smoking and popping pills and popping Xans and you quit going to parties and stuff, you have nothing to suppress any type of emotions anymore. And when you've never been like that for a good 2 years or any length of time, when you get sober again, it's insanely hard, and all you want is you're just craving something, some type of substance, something. So it was Friday night after a football game. I went to my friend's house, and this guy at the time, who was my boyfriend, he asked me to come over, and obviously he was a drug dealer, he did drugs, obviously. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? It was a Friday night. I wasn't sober until late Sunday, until I got home. So I went on a 3-day binge of popping Xans, of smoking marijuana, and of drinking and partying. A 3-day binge, which means I wasn't sober for over 24 hours straight. I woke up, I was still messed up, I would get even more messed up. I was asleep, I was insanely messed up. I finally got home on Sunday, and I shared a room with my sister, and I was sitting at her desk, and I was thinking to myself, and I just realized that I can't keep going like this. I was like, at the time it was my sophomore year. I was like, it's my sophomore year. I've been doing this for so long now. I realized, I looked at the people I was around. I was around a 17-year-old who dropped out of high school, didn't know what he was doing. I was around his good friend was 22, and he had no car, barely had a job, no place to stay at all. I was around 18-year-olds that had no idea what to do with their lives. They were just doing drugs. I've met people that they're well into their 20s, or they're well into their teenage years, like 19 or 18, and they're stuck in a trap house dealing and doing drugs, or dealing and just they're being an addict. I know homeless people who are still homeless right now because of their addiction. And I knew that if I didn't change, I wasn't going to change. And I seriously wanted to get somewhere. I wanted to be somebody, and I feel like that's the biggest drive for me, is I genuinely wanted to be someone, and I got tired of feeling sorry for myself. I got tired of just depending on drugs. I got tired of not understanding me or my emotions, because it eats you alive. That stuff eats you alive whether you're not sober or you are sober. It's gonna eat you whether you like it or not. And so I think that after that 3-day binge, that was seriously the turning point that said, like, I need to change, otherwise this is just gonna get worse.
So, have you ever overdosed?
Yes. So this one day, I was living in the trap house, and we had smoked marijuana together, obviously, because I was a staple, and I ended up taking a lot of Xans. I don't remember how many I took, but I took a lot. And if you don't know, both of those are antidepressants. They slow your heart rate down 110%. So I was messed up, and I was laying in bed, and I was about to go to sleep. And my heart was beating so slow that I thought I was gonna die. I literally thought that if I went to sleep, I wasn't gonna wake up again. I had a friend who took too many Xanax at a party, and he didn't wake up again. He went to sleep, didn't wake up again. And he was only 16 at the time. And at the time of this moment that I'm telling you about, I was only 15. And so I feel like that shows how bad my addiction was. And I didn't quit after that, obviously, but I was so messed up that even trying to get myself sober by eating, by drinking water or anything, none of it worked. I just had to let it come out of my system. And I didn't go to the hospital or anything. I simply just laid there and I thought about it. I was like, if I wake up or if I don't wake up, am I really gonna care? At the time, no. At the time, I didn't care. And I can only thank God to know that I made it and I woke up, because I seriously felt like I was not gonna wake up. My heart was beating that slow.
How many people in your life helped you get over the addiction?
2 off the top of my head, and then that would be my current boyfriend and my best friend. And then whenever my dad figured it out, he actually he really just said that if you do drugs again, you're gonna get out, because I was living with my mom at the time and I moved out of her house and started living with my dad. And he basically said, if you do drugs again, you're not gonna live here. And that was pretty much I was like, yeah, I can't get caught doing it again, because I don't want to go back to my mom's house.
How long have you been sober?
I've been sober now for 1 year and a month.
And how do you feel about it?
Very good. It's one of the best things I could have probably ever done in my life.
And how did the process go?
It was hard and it was lonely, and it felt like a new version of rock bottom, even though it wasn't. It was a rock bottom of sobriety. It was a starting point. It was ground zero, you should say. It was very lonely, because I tried to get sober with the people I was around, and it doesn't work because they're doing drugs. If you're an addict, you can't get sober around other addicts. It's not gonna happen. So I cut everybody off, and at the time, my current best friend and I, or my ex-best friend and I, we actually got into a really big fight about stuff, so it was a bit easier to cut him off. But at the same time, it's still hard, because you're getting better by yourself. You're facing your fears by yourself. I was completely alone. There really wasn't anybody to talk to. And I didn't go to NA meetings. I never went to rehab. I got sober on my own, and I can say that's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And the amount of mental game that plays into it is insane, because you're not just dropping drugs. You're facing trauma, you're facing anxiety, you're facing the loss of stuff,
What was your process of getting sober?
My process of getting sober was I quit everything cold turkey. I quit smoking weed, I quit nicotine, I quit Xanax, I quit everything. As you can imagine, I went into an insane withdrawal for 2 weeks. So I would get cold sweats, I would get clammy. Dude, I will not be able to forget how tired I was for no reason. I was just mentally tired. I would get so mad so easily. I wouldn't yell and scream at people, I would just get really mad. And you could tell I was mad. I couldn't focus at all. Whenever I would, obviously everyone that goes here knows you can walk into a bathroom and smell some type of drug, marijuana. When I would smell it, or when I would see people hitting their vapes or something like that, I would crave it. Some days, it would be all that I would think about. I would sit there for 30 minutes just thinking about drugs and wishing I had them in my system. Just wishing I could go back. And I knew if I went back, it was gonna get worse than the first 2 years. It was gonna get worse than the first time. Because every single time you go back, your addiction gets way stronger. And so I quit everything cold turkey. My mom and I actually got into a gigantic argument, so I ended up leaving her apartment, which was a blessing disguised as a blessing disguised as a curse at the time. And so I moved in with my dad. My best friend and I at the time fell out, so that made it a little easier to say, hey, I'm not gonna be around these people anymore. It was hard to cut everybody off, but I knew they were just gonna get in my way, for lack of a better term. They were just gonna get in my way and stop me from getting sober. And I knew I needed to get sober. Otherwise, I'm not gonna get out. I'm gonna be trapped. And like I said before, I got really tired of feeling trapped in my own head with the just drugs to be there. So after I cut everybody off, I wrote out a list of goals because I figured, how am I supposed to know what I want to do without a list? The list was very simple. The first one was to stay sober for a year, which I did at the time. I did not think was possible. I didn't even think the first 2 weeks was possible. So the first one was stay sober for a year. The second one, it was become a varsity athlete, which was rocky in itself, to say the least. The third was to at least maintain A's and B's, which I had, but I wanted to push myself more and harder to really focus in school, which I ended up doing. And then the fourth, which was just because I wanted it, was to get my permit / my license.
I hear you started a campaign. Can you tell us what it's called and what does it do?
My campaign is called Destroy the Stigma, and the point of this campaign is to do exactly what the title says, destroy the stigma, because I know when I was trying to get sober, it was very hard for me to face the judgment from my parents, from my friends, or from just people in general. A lot of adults will treat you like you're an alien, or a lot of kids will look at you differently just because you say you're an addict, or just because you come out and say, yeah, I've stopped doing drugs. The whole point of it is to make the environment for addicts just better. I know you can't help an addict unless an addict wants to be helped, but I feel like if you make the environment better for an addict to be like, hey, for them to come forward and say, hey, I'm an addict and I need help, I feel like that's the biggest thing we need to do, because there's scientific evidence. And if you looked at my slideshow on my Instagram or on my Twitter and people retweeting it, one slide, it has a quote, and it says he would rather jeopardize his leg than admit that he was an addict. So this doctor was in this place, and it was a regular shooting up like zone pretty much, where a lot of people would go and shoot up heroin. This guy had an insane infection in his leg, and he refused to go to the ER because he would get treated badly. He would get refused help at the ER because they didn't want to deal with him. A lot of stigma goes around us being killers, being crazy, being felons, and that's seriously not how it is. We're genuinely just regular people, just we're lost. We don't know where to go. Because when you're doing drugs for so long, you lose sight of everything else. Everything to do with you, everything to do with your emotions, everything to do with your life. So destroy the stigma is to destroy the stigma around being an addict, and to possibly, hopefully, start something and get awareness out there about the movement of just making the environment better.
Do you got any major plans for your campaign?
Yes, I have. I possibly might have something really big coming up. I don't want to say anything about it now, but if y'all follow my Instagram or follow me on Twitter or just the school's Twitter or whatever, y'all are gonna see possible really big things happening. And on the week of Red Ribbon Week, I'll be posting 3 more slideshows to support the campaign, and I possibly have even more plans for it. So hopefully everything goes right. Just everybody has to be patient with me and stay tuned about it. And if anyone wants to come and support somehow or has an idea that they think can be really good, I'll be completely open to taking suggestions to that. So yeah.
What would you want to tell anybody that is an addict but they don't know? Like, what would you tell them?
A lot of times you just refuse to call yourself an addict, so I wouldn't say that they don't know, because you know you're an addict. It's just you having to admit it, and I'll tell anybody that is an addict or that does, or it is chronically dependent on a substance of any sort, you need to be ready to give it up, and you need to be ready to endure a lot of mental pain. Because I'm gonna be honest, it's a lot of mental pain. It's the number one thing you're running from that's gonna kill you. Your demons are gonna grab you eventually. So I feel like, since we're so young, don't waste 10 years of your life of running away from the same issue. The issue's going to stay there whether you're doing drugs or not, and the issue's only gonna grow if you continue to do them. And I feel like the biggest thing I can tell anyone at all is that it will be okay, and you need to be strong, and you need to understand that life isn't always going to be so bad. It isn't always going to kill you, and you don't need any type of substance to survive besides food and water. Other than that, you don't need it. And until you're ready to accept that, you're not going to be able to get sober. Until you're ready to truly, truly accept that. I would like to leave you with this. Take time to write today. Write what you've been struggling with, and take time to reflect.